What if I told you, somewhere right now, deep inside a secure military base, there exists a weapon so fast, so powerful, that by the time you even realize it was launched, it may already be too late. A weapon that can travel 5 times faster than the speed of sound. A weapon that could cross an entire continent in minutes. And a weapon that the world's most powerful nations secretly fear. These are America's hypersonic and nuclear missiles, some of the most powerful weapons ever created in human history. But here's the part that makes this story even more chilling. Many of these weapons were designed not just to win wars, but to make sure wars never even begin. Imagine sitting in a command center late at night. The room is dark. Giant radar screens glow quietly on the walls. Military analysts watch the world in real time as satellites orbit thousands of kilometers above Earth. Everything seems calm. Then suddenly, an alert appears on the screen. A missile launch has been detected. But this isn't a normal missile. This one is moving too fast. Within seconds, it reaches speeds that most defense systems cannot keep up with. Radar systems struggle to track it. Computers race to calculate its path. But there's a problem. The missile isn't following a predictable path. It changes direction. Left, right, up, down, at speeds that melt metal and create heat hotter than a volcano. This is a terrifying power of hypersonic weapons. And when that speed is combined with the destructive force of nuclear warheads, the result becomes something the entire world watches with fear. One missile, one launch, one explosion powerful enough to erase an entire city. For decades, the United States has developed some of the most advanced missile systems ever built, hidden deep underground, beneath oceans inside nuclear submarines, and aboard strategic bombers flying high above the clouds. These weapons exist for one reason: deterrence. Because when the world knows a country possesses unstoppable weapons, enemies think twice before starting a conflict. But today, a new race is unfolding. A race not just for power, but for speed. Countries like China and Russia are developing their own hypersonic weapons. Military scientists across the globe are pushing technology further than ever before. The question is no longer whether these weapons exist. The question is how fast, how powerful, and how dangerous they may become. In this video, we're going to explore the incredible technology behind America's hypersonic and nuclear missiles, how they work, why they terrify military experts, and why these weapons might change the future of global security forever. Because the truth is, the most powerful weapons on Earth are not just tools of war. They are silent reminders of the enormous power humanity now holds in its hands. And once you understand how these weapons really work, you may start to see the balance of world power in a completely different way. So stay with me until the end, because what you're about to learn might completely change how you see modern warfare. It was a silent night inside one of the most secure military command centers in the United States. The massive room was dimly lit, filled with rows of computer stations and giant digital screens stretching across the walls. Every screen showed something different: satellite images of Earth, radar signals moving across oceans, and lines of code updating every second. Dozens of military analysts sat quietly at their stations, watching the world in real time. Nothing unusual seemed to be happening. Then suddenly, one screen flashed red. A simulated alert appeared across the central display. The system showed a missile launch scenario, something the operators train for every day. But this time, the simulation wasn't showing an ordinary missile. It showed something far more advanced: a hypersonic weapon. On the digital map, a glowing line shot across the screen at unbelievable speed. Within seconds, it had already crossed thousands of kilometers. The analysts watching the simulation understood immediately what they were looking at. This was the future of warfare. For decades, missiles had been one of the most powerful weapons ever created. But traditional missiles followed predictable paths through space. Defense systems could track them, calculate where they would land, and sometimes even intercept them. Hypersonic weapons changed everything. These missiles were not just faster. They were smarter and far more unpredictable. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles that travel in a high arc through space, hypersonic weapons fly much lower through the atmosphere. They glide and maneuver while traveling at extreme speeds. This makes them incredibly difficult to track. Even advanced radar systems can struggle to follow them. But the most shocking part is their speed. Hypersonic weapons travel at more than 5 times the speed of sound. In physics, the speed of sound is often used as a reference for extremely fast movement. V equals F lambda. This basic wave relationship explains how sound travels through air. When an object moves faster than the speed of sound, it creates shock waves. Hypersonic weapons move many times faster than this limit, creating extreme heat and pressure around them as they travel. At those speeds, a missile could travel across entire continents in a matter of minutes. Imagine a weapon launched on one side of the planet that reaches its target before most defense systems even realize what happened. That is the terrifying reality of hypersonic technology. Inside the command center, the simulation continued. The glowing path on the map twisted slightly as the missile changed direction mid-flight. That small movement was enough to confuse most traditional missile defense calculations. A ballistic missile normally follows a fixed path. Once its trajectory is known, computers can predict where it will land. But hypersonic weapons can maneuver. They can shift left or right, climb or dive, and adjust their path while still traveling at extreme speeds. This ability makes them incredibly difficult to intercept. Military strategists around the world have been studying this technology for years because it represents a huge shift in modern warfare. For a long time, missile defense systems were designed to stop predictable threats. But hypersonic weapons are designed to avoid prediction entirely. In the simulation room, the glowing missile icon moved closer and closer to its target. The analysts watched the countdown timer drop rapidly. 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute. Then the screen froze. The simulation ended. The room remained silent. Even though it was just a test scenario, everyone in that room understood the message behind it. Technology like this could completely change the balance of global power. The United States has spent billions of dollars researching and developing hypersonic weapons. Scientists, engineers, and defense experts have been working for years to push the limits of speed, materials, and guidance systems. Building a weapon that can survive hypersonic speeds is not easy. At those velocities, air resistance creates extreme heat. The surface of the missile can reach temperatures hot enough to melt steel. To survive this environment, engineers must design special heat-resistant materials and advanced guidance systems that continue working even under extreme pressure and heat. Every test flight teaches researchers something new. Sometimes the weapons fail during testing. Sometimes they succeed in ways that surprise even the scientists who designed them. But each experiment brings the technology closer to reality. Around the world, other powerful nations are also racing to develop similar weapons. Countries like Russia and China have invested heavily in hypersonic research. Military experts believe that whichever nation perfects this technology first could gain a massive strategic advantage. Because when a weapon moves faster than defense systems can react, it changes how countries think about security and warfare. This is why hypersonic missiles are often described as game-changing weapons. They represent a new era of military capability, one where speed, precision, and unpredictability combine to create something the world has rarely seen before. Back inside the command center, the analysts slowly returned to their work. For them, the simulation was just another training scenario, but the technology behind it was very real. Somewhere in secret testing facilities and research laboratories, engineers were already building the next generation of these weapons. Faster, smarter, more advanced than anything created before. And as the world enters this new age of military technology, one thing becomes clear. The race for the fastest and most powerful weapons on Earth has only just begun. To truly understand why hypersonic missiles are considered some of the most feared weapons in the world, we need to go back to one of the most intense periods in modern history, the Cold War. After World War II ended in 1945, the global balance of power changed dramatically. Two superpowers rose to dominance, the United States and the Soviet Union. Both nations possessed powerful militaries, advanced technology, and most importantly, nuclear weapons. But instead of fighting each other directly, they entered a decades-long competition known as the arms race. During this time, each side constantly tried to build stronger, faster, and more advanced weapons than the other. Every new technological breakthrough created fear that the other side might gain a strategic advantage. Missiles quickly became the most important weapons in this competition. Before this era, bombs had to be delivered by aircraft. That meant planes had to fly over enemy territory, risking interception by air defenses. Missiles changed everything. With missile technology, a country could launch a weapon from thousands of kilometers away and strike a target within minutes. This led to the creation of intercontinental ballistic missiles, commonly known as ICBMs. These missiles could travel from one continent to another, carrying nuclear warheads capable of destroying entire cities. But ballistic missiles had one major weakness. They followed a predictable path. Once launched, they would travel high above the Earth's atmosphere in a curved trajectory before falling toward their target. Because this path was predictable, radar systems could detect them and calculate where they were going. This gave defense systems a chance, sometimes a small one, to intercept them. Military scientists wanted something better. They wanted a missile that could move so fast and unpredictably that enemy defenses would struggle to stop it. This idea became the foundation of hypersonic technology. Hypersonic weapons are defined as objects traveling at Mach 5 or faster. In aviation and physics, Mach represents multiples of the speed of sound. When an object moves faster than sound waves can travel through air, it creates a powerful shock wave. V equals F lambda. This simple wave relationship explains how sound speed depends on frequency and wavelength. When vehicles exceed this natural speed limit in the atmosphere, they enter the supersonic and eventually hypersonic range. At hypersonic speeds, the physics of flight becomes extremely challenging. Air molecules slam into the surface of the vehicle with incredible force. The friction generates massive heat, sometimes reaching temperatures of 2,000 degrees Celsius or more. To survive these conditions, engineers must design special materials that resist melting, cracking, or breaking apart. This challenge slowed down early hypersonic research for decades. In the 1950s and 1960s, scientists in the United States began experimenting with extremely fast experimental aircraft and rocket systems. Some of these programs pushed the limits of speed in ways never seen before. One famous example was the X-15 rocket plane, which reached speeds above Mach 6 during experimental flights. These early experiments helped scientists understand how materials behave under hypersonic conditions. They also revealed something surprising. Flying at hypersonic speed wasn't just about building a powerful engine. It required solving dozens of engineering problems at the same time. Heat protection, advanced navigation systems, specialized aerodynamic shapes, materials capable of surviving extreme stress. Every part of the vehicle had to work perfectly. Even a small design flaw could cause catastrophic failure at those speeds. Despite these challenges, research continued. Over time, military scientists began developing two main types of hypersonic weapons. The first type is called a hypersonic glide vehicle, HEV. This weapon is launched into the upper atmosphere by a rocket. After reaching high altitude, it separates from the rocket and glides back toward Earth at hypersonic speeds while maneuvering toward its target. Because it can change direction while descending, predicting its path becomes extremely difficult. The second type is known as a hypersonic cruise missile. Unlike glide vehicles, cruise missiles use special engines called scramjets. These engines allow the missile to continue flying at hypersonic speeds within the atmosphere for long distances. Scramjets are incredibly complex machines. They compress incoming air at extreme speeds and mix it with fuel for combustion, all while traveling faster than sound itself. Designing an engine that can operate under those conditions is one of the most difficult challenges in aerospace engineering. For many years, hypersonic weapons remained mostly experimental, but as technology improved, several nations began investing heavily in turning these experiments into real military systems. The United States launched multiple programs focused on hypersonic research, testing advanced prototypes designed for future military use. At the same time, other countries began accelerating their own programs. Russia announced several hypersonic systems capable of extremely high speeds. China also conducted multiple successful hypersonic tests, demonstrating its growing capabilities in advanced missile technology. Suddenly, the world found itself entering a new arms race. But this time, the competition was not just about nuclear weapons. It was about speed. The faster a missile can travel, the less time an enemy has to respond. Traditional ballistic missiles might give defense systems 20 to 30 minutes of warning. Hypersonic weapons could reduce that time dramatically. In some scenarios, the warning could be just a few minutes. This creates serious strategic concerns for military planners around the world, because when decision-makers have less time to respond during a crisis, the risk of mistakes increases. Still, governments continue to pursue this technology because of its potential advantages. A hypersonic missile could strike high-value targets with incredible precision. It could potentially bypass advanced missile defense systems designed to stop traditional threats. And perhaps most importantly, it could act as a powerful deterrent. If a country knows its enemies possess weapons that are nearly impossible to stop, it may think twice before starting a conflict. Today, the race for hypersonic supremacy continues. Secret testing programs, advanced research labs, and military engineers are working across the globe to push the boundaries of what is possible. Every successful test brings the world closer to a future where hypersonic weapons become a regular part of modern military arsenals. But speed alone is not what makes these weapons truly terrifying. The real fear comes from what they can carry. And that leads us to the next part of the story, the devastating power of nuclear warheads. Imagine a weapon traveling across the sky faster than any fighter jet, faster than most radar systems can track, and faster than many defense systems can react. Now imagine that weapon carrying one of the most destructive forces humanity has ever created, a nuclear warhead. This is the reason why hypersonic missiles are considered some of the most feared weapons on Earth. Speed alone is dangerous, but when that speed is combined with nuclear power, the result becomes something capable of changing the course of history in seconds. To understand why nuclear weapons are so powerful, we need to look at the science behind them. Unlike conventional bombs that rely on chemical explosions, nuclear weapons release energy from the atoms themselves. When the nucleus of certain atoms splits apart, an enormous amount of energy is released almost instantly. This process is known as nuclear fission, E equals mc squared. This famous equation, introduced by Albert Einstein, explains the relationship between mass and energy. It shows that even a tiny amount of matter can be converted into an enormous amount of energy. Nuclear weapons take advantage of this principle, releasing vast energy in a fraction of a second. When a nuclear weapon detonates, several devastating effects occur at once. First comes a flash of light. The explosion produces a burst of energy brighter than the sun, capable of blinding people miles away. Then comes a fireball. Temperatures inside the explosion can reach millions of degrees, hotter than the center of the sun. Everything within the immediate area is instantly vaporized. Next comes a shock wave. This powerful blast of compressed air moves outward at incredible speed, flattening buildings, destroying infrastructure, and throwing debris across large areas. Finally, there's radiation. Nuclear explosions release dangerous radioactive particles that can affect human health and the environment for many years. Because of these destructive effects, nuclear weapons are considered the most powerful weapons ever developed by humans. Today, modern nuclear warheads are far more powerful than the bombs used during World War II. Some advanced warheads are capable of producing explosions measured in hundreds of kilotons or even megatons of TNT equivalent. To understand what that means, consider this. A single modern nuclear warhead could destroy an entire city within minutes. For this reason, nuclear weapons are rarely discussed as tools for fighting wars. Instead, they are mainly used as deterrents. Deterrence means preventing war by making the consequences of conflict too devastating for any country to risk. The United States developed a system known as the nuclear triad to ensure that its nuclear forces remain secure and capable of responding to any threat. This system consists of 3 different ways to deliver nuclear weapons. The first component is land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs. These missiles are stored in reinforced underground silos across remote areas of the country. They can be launched within minutes and travel thousands of kilometers to reach their targets. The second component is submarine-launched ballistic missiles. Nuclear submarines patrol the world's oceans, hidden deep underwater. Because these submarines are extremely difficult to detect, they provide a powerful second strike capability. Even if an enemy were to attack land-based missile sites, submarines could still respond. The third component of the nuclear triad is strategic bombers. These long-range aircraft are capable of carrying nuclear weapons and flying across continents. Unlike missiles, bombers can be recalled after launch, giving leaders more flexibility during crisis. Together, these three systems create a powerful and balanced nuclear defense strategy. But the introduction of hypersonic technology could make nuclear weapons even more dangerous. Traditional nuclear missiles, such as ballistic missiles, follow predictable paths. Early warning systems can detect launches and give military leaders time to react. Hypersonic weapons change this equation. Because they travel much faster and maneuver during flight, they can reduce the amount of warning time available to defense systems. In some cases, a hypersonic missile could reach its target in just a few minutes. This creates serious concerns among military experts and global leaders. If countries have less time to respond during a potential nuclear attack, decision-making becomes much more difficult. Leaders may have only minutes to determine whether a launch is real, accidental, or part of a misunderstanding. Despite these concerns, many countries continue to develop advanced missile technologies. For the United States, maintaining a strong nuclear deterrent is considered essential for national security. Modernization programs are constantly upgrading missile systems, submarines, and bombers to ensure they remain effective in the future. Hypersonic weapons may eventually become part of this broader strategy. Some versions of hypersonic missiles are expected to carry conventional warheads rather than nuclear ones. These weapons could strike high-value targets with extreme precision while avoiding the devastating consequences of nuclear explosions. However, the possibility of nuclear-capable hypersonic missiles remains one of the most discussed topics in military strategy. Because if a weapon moves at hypersonic speeds and carries a nuclear payload, it becomes one of the most powerful strike capabilities ever created. This is why global attention is focused on these developments. Every successful test, every new prototype, and every advancement in missile technology is closely watched by nations around the world. The reason is simple. Weapons that combine extreme speed with nuclear power could reshape the balance of military power across the globe. But despite their terrifying potential, these weapons are not meant to be used lightly. In fact, the true purpose of many nuclear weapons is something very different. They exist mainly to prevent war, not start one. And that idea leads directly into the final part of the story, the strategy behind weapons that are designed to never be fired. After learning about the incredible speed of hypersonic missiles and the devastating power of nuclear warheads, an important question naturally comes to mind. If these weapons are so powerful, why are they built at all? The surprising answer is that many of the most destructive weapons in the world are designed not to be used, but to prevent war from happening in the first place. This idea is known as deterrence, and it has been one of the most important strategies in global security for more than 70 years. The concept of deterrence is actually quite simple. If two countries both possess extremely powerful weapons capable of destroying each other, neither side wants to start a war that could lead to its own destruction. In other words, the danger of retaliation becomes so great that conflict becomes the worst possible option. This balance of fear is often referred to as mutually assured destruction or MAD. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union both built massive nuclear arsenals. Each side had enough weapons to destroy the other many times over. At first glance, this might sound terrifying, and in many ways it was. But paradoxically, this balance also helped prevent a direct war between the two superpowers, because both nations understood that launching a nuclear attack would guarantee a devastating response. This idea can even be explained using a basic probability concept. P, A intersection B, equals P, A, P, B, independent events. In simple terms, this principle explains how two events can influence outcomes together. In strategic terms, when both sides have the ability to retaliate, the probability of total destruction becomes extremely high. Because the consequences are so catastrophic, rational leaders are less likely to initiate conflict. That is the logic behind nuclear deterrence. The weapons exist so that no one wants to risk using them. For decades, this strategy helped maintain an uneasy peace between the world's most powerful nations. Even during moments of extreme tension, such as the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, Leaders on both sides ultimately chose diplomacy over destruction. However, technology never stands still. As decades pass, military scientists continue developing faster, smarter, and more precise weapons. Hypersonic missiles represent the latest evolution in that long history of military innovation. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles, hypersonic weapons introduce a new factor into the strategic equation: extreme speed combined with maneuverability. These missiles can travel at more than 5 times the speed of sound while adjusting their path during flight. That combination makes them extremely difficult to detect and intercept. For military planners, this technology offers significant advantages. A hypersonic missile could strike important targets, such as radar installations, military bases, or communication centers with incredible precision and very little warning. In some cases, the time between launch and impact could be only a few minutes. From a strategic perspective, this creates both opportunities and risks. On one hand, hypersonic weapons could improve deterrence by making a country's strike capability even more powerful and difficult to defend against. On the other hand, these weapons could reduce the time leaders have to respond during a crisis. In the past, traditional ballistic missile launches could often be detected early by satellites and radar systems. Military leaders might have 20 or 30 minutes to analyze the situation and decide how to respond. Hypersonic weapons could shorten that decision time significantly. When warning times shrink, the chances of misunderstanding or miscalculation increase. Imagine a situation where radar systems detect a fast-moving object approaching at hypersonic speed. Leaders would have only minutes or perhaps seconds to determine whether the weapon is carrying a conventional payload or a nuclear one. That uncertainty could create extremely dangerous situations during international crises. Because of these concerns, many experts believe that the development of hypersonic weapons could lead to new arms control discussions in the future. Throughout history, countries have sometimes negotiated agreements to limit certain types of weapons in order to reduce the risk of catastrophic war. Examples include nuclear arms reduction treaties and missile limitation agreements. As hypersonic technology continues to evolve, similar discussions may take place again. At the same time, research and development continue around the world. The United States is investing heavily in new hypersonic programs designed to maintain its technological advantage. These programs include advanced glide vehicles, high-speed cruise missiles, and improved guidance systems capable of navigating at extreme velocities. Other nations are pursuing similar technologies. Russia has announced operational hypersonic weapons, such as the Avangard glide vehicle and the Kinzhal missile system. China has also demonstrated several hypersonic test vehicles during recent years. This growing competition has led some experts to describe the situation as a new global arms race. But unlike the Cold War, the focus today is not just on nuclear power. It is also about speed, precision, and technological innovation. Despite these developments, one important truth remains unchanged. The most powerful weapons in human history still serve the same primary purpose they did decades ago: to prevent large-scale war. Military leaders often hope that the existence of these weapons will make potential enemies think twice before taking aggressive actions. The logic is simple but powerful. If the consequences of conflict become too severe, rational leaders will choose diplomacy instead. That is why many of the world's most destructive weapons spend their entire existence sitting quietly in silos, submarines, or secure facilities, never launched, never used. They remain silent reminders of the enormous power humanity has created. And as technology continues to advance, the world faces an important challenge. We must decide not only how to build powerful technologies, but also how to control them responsibly. Because the future of global security may depend not on the weapons themselves, but on the wisdom of the people who control them.